who received the 7-volume report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in 2003 was former President Thabo Mbeki. He was the President of the Republic at the time. Those reports were handed to him. They were handed to him. So the buck around everything that related to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the implementation of the recommendations, started and ended with him. If his Minister of Justice did not ensure that the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission were implemented, who must be held accountable for that? His Minister of Justice or him? If the Directorate for Special Operations or Investigations does not do what they were supposed to with documents, with a report that was handed to the President, who must be held accountable? The NDPP? What about the President, who was the one that received the reports? Because when you're President, you can't decide what you want to do and what you don't want to do. The fact that we are sitting here today, Commissioners, is because of Thabo Mbeki's failings. It is because he failed as the President of the Republic to ensure that 2 of his administrations, the one that he led when he received the TRC reports in 2003, then we went to the elections in 2004. I remember intricately, actually, when Mr. Mbeki was inaugurated into office in 2004.
We'll stay with this particular story now and speak to Dorothy Calata, Fort Calata's daughter and chairperson of the Fort Calata Foundation. A very good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, let's just start with getting to this point where the inquiry finally gets to hear from the family. What does this moment mean for you?
Good evening to you and good evening to your listeners as well. It means quite a lot. It's almost as if it's an answer on its own already. Just the fact that there could be an inquiry is a victory to us and to all of the families, the victim families of the TRC.
Mm-hmm. Your brother, it's something that he's been saying over time, and hearing it again brings it quite back home, that the family feels the betrayal. The family feels that this has taken forever. The family is really still trying to make sense of the events, of the past and the subsequent lack of accountability in this matter. Perhaps let's speak about that.
I've just finished another interview now, and I was saying that it's been 41 years. And it is unfortunate that within our own family, we count with the presence of my sister, who was born only 2 weeks after my father's funeral, my father and his comrade's funeral. It's a very deep sitting trauma that cannot come to an end precisely because there is and has not been justice for this family and other families as well. I remember when I wanted to sit and find out where we are as these families, from the narrative of the apartheid to our current narrative, the only thing that was dominating in the responses that were given by all family members was justice. When are we ever going to have closure? And when are we going to see justice for our loved ones? And this justice has turned in form, from being a plain criminal justice that we sought for, where people were going to be held accountable in a court of law for doing the actual killing, and maybe for sharing a little bit of truth in terms of who were the commanders for who gave them the instructions to kill. Unfortunately, all of those people have died. And it seems as if I'm speaking about the Cradock Four families only, but it is the general notion in all other cases as well. A lot of the perpetrators have died.
And right on that point, two questions come to mind. I'm going to start with this one. The passage of time, and you speak about the persons of interest who have passed on here. Do you think in light of that, you will ever get to see the justice that you're seeking?
If, like Lukanyo ended his testimony today, if this Khampepe Commission can call the necessary people to come and tell us why they did not pursue the justice as we have hoped for, maybe that will bring us the closure. Because we cannot go and raise those dead men. But if we have to understand why they were not held accountable, it can be a truth that may lead us to the better truths that will soothe our hearts.
Yeah.
So I think we are hoping, really, we are hoping deeply that the commission will dig into the reasons why these cases were never really heard, not the reasons that we are given nonchalantly, but the core of why the ANC government has taken our justice as all of these families so light, and why at some stage President Thabo Mbeki even wanted to give blanket amnesty to everybody who was involved. At least if we can get those answers, then justice will be served in many different ways.
Do you, as a family, feel betrayed?
Cool. Quite a lot. We've been betrayed after the very first inquest. We've been betrayed after the second inquest. If I recall, when my mother, she always talks about it so painfully about how after the second inquest, the judgment was postponed. The findings, the reading of the findings was postponed for after we have voted into the new democracy. And really, they were hoping that that delay was probably because something more positive was going to come. And unfortunately, it was not the case. The results were even more vague, where Justice Usman found that, yes, there were security forces and the police were involved, but there were no people who were named specifically, at the time. And then there was hope, really, that no, when we get into our own democracy, these perpetrators, at the time, we said these white people are going to be answerable. Unfortunately for us, we were betrayed even by the ANC that we trusted. And I think that is why this cut is so deep. It is because it came from an ANC that my father and his comrades died for. And for us then to have to sit and swallow the bitter pill that they are the ones who are actually denying us the justice in many different forms. It's even more painful.
And
even the opposition of Justice Campempe now is another form of betrayal.
And I suppose the wound, will also be difficult, be difficult for it to heal because the original docket is missing. And that in and itself has left you as a family with many questions.
Yes, of course it has. But if you trace in terms of when the docket got lost, there are people who can be held accountable for that process. And to us specifically, it was not only the docket that made this injury deep. I remember in 2005, people from the NPA came unannounced at our home, and they came with a suitcase which they never opened, saying that whatever it is they were carrying was very traumatizing to view, but they wanted my mother to sign something very quickly, denying a filmmaker at the time, David Forbes, to gain access into the archives. And when David has done his first documentary of the Cradock Four, he had seen the archives, so it was going to be a follow-up visit for him, but they blatantly refused that he must have the access into the archives, and they said that they were busy doing investigations at the time. And as you would have heard from Lukanyo today, from Lukanyo's testimony, there weren't any investigations that were really done after the period of the TRC and up until that docket got lost in 2013 when it was actually requested in the higher offices. So this cut is deep. The issue of the docket is very deep. And when we've had the meetings with the NPA, and they were talking about how they were trying to reconstruct the document, they also sort of tried to show us that there just existed a copy upon another copy upon another copy. And it seemed as if it was just deliberate that, a copy would be found of something in one office, and then a couple of days thereafter, they would have hope that somebody would say, well, we discovered part of the document, and they would find that it would be a copy of the same version of whatever it is that they've had in a different corner, which made it seem it was very deliberate. Even the parts of the document that could be found again, they were repetitions of the same thing, which sort of showed you that we are being taken for a ride here.
Yeah.
We are being taken for a ride. That is why I think there was at some stage a severe frustration with the NPA. And even within those meetings that we had with them, it felt as if we were going nowhere because there was no hope, really. Yeah.
Dorothy, thank you so much for speaking to us, and let's see then how the process continues, and hopefully we get to speak again. Appreciate your time this evening. That was Dorothy Calata, the chairperson of the Fort Calata Foundation and the daughter of Fort Calata.